Hello, everybody. Welcome to Webinar Wednesday. My name is Martijn Lofvers. I'm the Chief Technology Officer of Supply Chain Media. I'm also the Editor-in-Chief of Supply Chain Movement, European Quarterly, and also a bi-weekly newsletter. And I'm the architect of the IT Supply Map. So welcome to this webinar, live webinar. In the next hour, we're going to talk about onboarding resilience. And we have a great customer case from Jabil. They talk about their game-changing strategy. So let me introduce first myself on the left-hand side, but in the middle, we see Alan Brown. He's the VP of Supply Chain Transformation at Jabil. So, Alan, welcome.
Delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
No problem. And next, we have Jeff Eckel. He is Director of Product Marketing on the matter of supply chain manufacturing and AI of E2Open. So, Jeff, welcome.
Thank you very much.
So both experts have a way long experience, over 20 years in the market, and we will talk about it. So that's good to know. We'll talk about resilience and supply chain. Before we go into this, a few topics. This webinar will be recorded. Everybody will get the PDF of the presentation within 48 hours. So everybody's on mute, but you can ask questions to us. So basically, there are two options. You see the chat function on the right-hand side, so everybody can see it and, respond to that. Basically, will this be recorded? Yes, this will be recorded. So basically, if you use the Q&A function on the right-hand side with the text bubbles, you can even, prioritize a question, etc. So basically, these questions I will track down, and if these questions are in line of the conversation I will be having with Alan and Jeff, I will ask this immediately, or otherwise I'll reserve these questions to the end of the Q&A. And after the Q&A, we have an extra 30 minutes. So Alan, Jeff, and myself will be at table 1, and we will sit down. And just like in a normal presentations, you can come up to us and sit down with us and have a further conversation about resilience. So as of this point, I will put off my camera, and people can enlarge the screen, and basically we have a better view. So Jeff, you can put off your camera, and Alan, and we can get back there later on. All right. So when we look at what's happening in the world, so there's a lot of turbulence in the world. The global supply chains are in a bit of a turmoil. And then what we see now, in 2020, it started out with COVID-19, and that results in lockdowns, lockdowns at home, also lockdowns of factories, and then they resulted in shortages, but also a boom in e-commerce. And these shortages and these booms in e-commerce were resulting in bullwhips already. Fuel prices went up in the last few years, and that already resulted in inflation. And then early last year, another big disruption, the war in Ukraine happened, and it resulted in gas supply shortages, also raising costs, inflations. And in the end, we are talking about recessions, big or small, whatever, but we are in that phase. And for next year in Europe, there will be the CSRD. So that's all about sustainability and scope 3. So basically, we have to look at CO2, and that will take investments. But in the end, these are things happening. And we all in supply chain know this kind of bullwhips and cause and effect. So these are the things that makes us aware that we need resilience, the topic of this afternoon. And the need for visibility is also quite clear on different kind of levels. And for the visibility, you need different kind of applications. So this is why I created the IT Supply Map. This is already, I think, the 12th version. So you see the ERP, WMS, TMS, and all the vendors are here positioned. And one of them is E2Open, taking the initiative for this webinar of this Wednesday. And E2Open is already positioned for years on this map, but it started out with a collaboration platform, and in the last 7-8 years, has expanded their portfolio by acquisitions. We had Amber Road on global trade management, Steel Wedge on S&OP, Terra Technology on forecasting and demand sensing, Blue Jello Solutions on WMS, and Logistics on TMS. So that's a whole plethora and the whole platform, and we'll talk about it later. Something to add from your side, Jeff, on E2Open?
Yeah, it's just about closing the gap between the end-to-end visibility. A lot of those acquisitions were really supplementing different areas that we now can connect and provide that end-to-end platform on.
Yes, quite clear. And one of the customers is Jabil, and so let's move on to Jabil. So, Alan, can you explain a bit more about Jabil? Might be well known, but please explain a bit more. What does Jabil look like?
Sure. So, Jabil, we're probably one of the biggest companies that many people have never heard of. We are a global manufacturing solutions provider. We've got over 250,000 employees globally in 100 different, 100 plus different country locations, 100 different factory locations in 30 countries. We have over 300 end customers, many of whom are the world leading product brands that rely on us for our end market experience, our technical and our design capabilities, our manufacturing know-how, our supply chain insights, and and our product expertise. And as you can see here, we serve a vast array of end market sectors, from networking, cloud communications, healthcare, automotive, consumer industries. And we do that, offering with a range of offerings from product, starting from right at the beginning, from product innovation, working with our customers all the way through the usual, design, plan, source, manufacture, to the end delivery and service. So, we span across we touch across a lot of customers, a lot of industries. We see a lot of, we have a great position in the market in terms of seeing across that broad spectrum of what's going on. We bring a lot of knowledge and expertise to our customers.
So when I look at this overview, I see a lot of complexity because of different markets you are serving on one hand, and on the other hand, it's like many manufacturing companies, you have different departments, and you have the same offerings as the departments within a lot of manufacturing companies.
Yeah, it's kind of the nature of the markets that we operate in. Everyone is uniquely different. The way that we structure from a supply chain perspective is we try to aggregate as much as we can on across more standardized commodity areas. But there's a lot of uniqueness in these customers in terms of some of the specifications of materials, the types of form factors that we purchase. So we have to have a very flexible model that enables us to tailor for each of our customers and build a structure that services them with the right expertise targeted to the market that we're serving from them. So really building that kind of targeted domain knowledge within those market sectors, and having those teams really be focused and really understand deeply what's going on across those markets, and be ready to to be able to help and support to navigate the challenges that our customer has there.
You explained to me in the briefing call that you see Jabil as more as a network of SMEs, of small medium-sized companies.
Yeah, I think you can look at it, if you think about, as you say, these different markets that we have. We build this domain knowledge and expertise within those market sectors. So we have dedicated teams that are focused on really building our knowledge and expertise there, and so we have really unique domain knowledge there. But we also have a network structure that enables us to really leverage and share and make sure that we are taking advantage of the capabilities that we build in one sector, and look at how can we take those, leverage them and use them in others. So a case might be, for example, in the optical space, cameras, something that in the past we built a very large domain in the consumer space. We've got customers in that kind of mobile handset consumer area. But that's, more recently became very relevant, obviously, in the automotive industry with the safety and the cameras going into vehicles. So that's been something that we a knowledge and an expertise that we incubated, grew, developed in one sector, that we've then taken and can use that same knowledge in other sectors, and likewise also in healthcare as well as automotive. So we have this ability to be able to grow and incubate that knowledge, but be able to connect it across the different sectors as required.
Okay, clear. And on the right-hand side, you see supply chain orchestration. That's a nice tie into the next topic of resilience. Can you explain a bit more about resilience? Because, Jabil was also confronted with all kind of disruption in the last 2 years.
Yeah. I think, if the last few years have told us anything, and I think we've all realized that global supply chains are becoming ever more complex. We've seen a range of situations. Climate-driven events are becoming more frequent. Geopolitical disruptions. There's new disruptive products coming to the market. Faster changing end markets. Erratic behaviors of the consumer, of consumers. All of these make it, ever more critical that you're designing your supply chain for resiliency. And when we talk about resiliency, it's about, how do you build that supply chain to be prepared and be ready to react and navigate the next unexpected disruption, while, with minimal impact to your operations or to your end customer demand. And I think, for us, we my view on it here is that I think supply chain resiliency will look very different at every company. You've got to identify and understand, your own pain points, your risk factors, both inside and outside of your organization. If you look at this chart here, for us, right, we because of the number of customers we have, and the very diverse set of markets, we're managing a hugely complex number of suppliers, 27,000 plus suppliers, over 1.5 million bill of material components. And at any point in time, we can have up to around 2.8 to 3 million open PO lines that we're having to understand, the status of, making sure we understand delivery information in as near real time as possible. And of course, we're supporting our vast network of factories. We've got a lot of people in those across those sites supporting on the procurement side, and with a lot of volume material passing through there. And at the end of the day, we are supporting these customers. We're supporting making sure that we get the product to them on time to support their revenue targets, their market objectives. So there's a vast complexity in terms of where we ship to, through hubs, direct to customers, to distribution centers. So we have to map out and look at, what does it look like for us? And the way that we think about resiliency, or the way that we kind of, I guess, focus the lens on it, is through the areas at the top there, which is around process, technology, and people. So process being, how do we continue to evolve our processes? How do we leverage data, use analytics, and get more predictive and prescriptive insights to help us navigate these challenges? How do, from a technology angle, are we investing in the right technologies to accelerate, our process transformation? And how do we maximize the value we get from those? And then on a people perspective, it's around, how do these investments, how do these changes help make it easier for our teams to keep them more informed, enhance their work experience, and deliver, and increase the performance of our operations? So this is how we think about it. We focus on these three areas. And I think from a kind of metrics point of view, if you want to talk about that for a moment, I think, the way we look at this is around, when we evaluate the effectiveness of our sort of resiliency plans, we use the Simchi-Levy model. Looking at, time to survive, what is that time to resume operations after a given disruption? What is the time to recover and the time to thrive? So how do you compare pre and post crisis, and how do we come out stronger? What did we learn, and how do we take that forward? And I think, companies that can, navigate these, challenging times, build that resiliency, and be able to adjust their strategies and prepare themselves better for the future, will really position themselves well to be ready for what the next challenge throws at them.
I was wondering, you mentioned the risk exposure index model from Professor David Simchi-Levy from MIT, but I can imagine, you have a quite extensive supplier network. How do you go about to get the data of the risk exposure of all kind of suppliers, tier 1, tier 2?
And it's without doubt a challenge, right? This is one of the most challenging aspects, is how we keep on top of trying to manage the number of suppliers that we have and gather that information. We have a very robust process in terms of supplier onboarding. So when we bring suppliers into our ecosystem, we go through a fairly rigorous set of processes to bring them on board. We have a platform that we use to effectively gather information and data on those suppliers in terms of their locations, their capabilities. So we have that as one point. We have a lot of information that we collate through, obviously, our knowledge of shipping routes, logistics, etc. So we bring a lot of different data points together to effectively start to build a picture of how that supplier network looks for us, and where those suppliers are, where potentially could the risks and the pain points be.
All right, and if we look at your analysis of how to start, how to go about all this, so can you explain what are the challenges and how do you assess them?
I think for us, it's where I would start here. So fundamentally, we're a manufacturing company at our core, right? So everything we do is dependent on our ability to plan, to source, and deliver components and raw materials to our factories. That's our objective here. And again, given the diversity of those markets that we serve, in the complexity of that supply chain with those 27,000 plus suppliers, it's really important for us that we have good quality data within our system that we can use in order to make reliable decisions and make intelligent decisions in terms of where we need to go focus when we're building resiliency. So, for us, the first step on that is around, trying to connect this end-to-end visibility. So being able to make sure that we have accurate PO data information coming back from the suppliers, and that we are updating that as near real time as possible. It's about understanding the visibility of our goods movements, goods inwards flows through the shipping process. So really building up as much visibility as to what's going on across our supply chain as possible. And then it's around looking at where do we potentially see the risks, looking at historical information, looking at the data that we capture from our suppliers to understand where the potential pain points may be within that supply chain, and running specific network modeling to be able to look across our ecosystem and look at where we may have areas that could be a potential risk for us. And then, looking from an orchestration point of view, having the the tools and the capabilities to be able to really have a good visual on connecting all of that in terms of what we've seen, the data from historical information, what's going on now across our supply chain, and being able to model and run scenarios around what if this event occurs, what would be the impact. So be able to run scenarios and planning on logistics, on purchasing, to be able to quickly assess impacts and make more intelligent decisions. So this is kind of how we think about it. Specifically with E2Open, our big challenge we had in that whole area was around, for us, was on the supplier communications and really making sure that we are getting timely update of PO information into our system. We're obviously a large, really large organization. We have very advanced tools in some space in the space of communicating with our high volume suppliers. So, but we have, because of the very long tail of spend that we have a lot of suppliers who are simply not able to engage on, B2B EDI solutions. So we really had a situation where, we had in our sites, our buyers are having to download email information to those long tail suppliers. They're having to get email responses back on commitments. They're then having to put that data into our ERP system themselves. So all of those are steps add latency. There's delays across all of that. There's also opportunity for error. There's also risk that everything's really going through one buyer email. There's a traceability concern there as well. So for us, we had a specific problem that was around how can we automate not just the 20% of suppliers that are the high volume of transactions, but the 80%, that tail spend. We also need a way to be able to bring them on board, and we know from history and previous attempts at this that not all suppliers want to use portals. Not everyone wants to log on to a portal. There's many of these suppliers we transact with once or twice a quarter, once or twice a year even. But we still want to be able that when we do send order books and we do share information, given that, we have extended lead times with many of these suppliers. So we have orders that are placed for many, many weeks in advance. We need to be sure that we're keeping our system accurate with the dates, and that we're communicating changes that we need on a timely basis. So this is where we came together with E2Open and looked at leveraging their solution for long tail collaboration that enabled us to, yes, we can offer a portal, but what we also offer is an automated way that we can actually create emails with Excel attachments or with a UI, a real-time UI link that lets the suppliers access to be able to give commitments to their orders, and that flows instantaneously, automatically back into our ERP system. So all of the outbound communication and the inbound response from the suppliers is all automated, all updates, and we effectively have a dashboard that really we're monitoring the exceptions and making sure that if we see any gaps in commit versus delivery requirement, or suppliers potentially not responding on time, we can just address those. But we know that the administrative side of this is being done automatically in our system. So for us, that was that was a challenge that we had. That really, the solution that we've worked on with E2Open has enabled us really to vastly improve the quality of that data, enabling that better visibility to PO status. And it's just, and it's given us, more, a clearer picture in terms of the where risks may sit within our supply chain.
Makes sense. I was wondering, short question, what is your assessment on the lead times in the last few years? Because there's a lot of talk about that.
Yeah, for sure. I think as we came through, through the period of COVID, there was massive disruptions within the supply chain that saw lead times on, I think, pretty much across the board. I think there was very few exceptions where lead times, just increased, significantly. In the last, I would say, 12 months or so, we're certainly starting to see a return to some sense of normality across many of the more standardized commodity areas. There are still specific pockets of commodities and specific component types that still have extremely long lead times, and we have to make sure that those are obviously planned and managed extremely carefully. So we're certainly not, we've not. I don't think I'm not sure the normal ever exists anymore, to be honest. I don't think there is a normal anymore. I think this is what we're in now is probably what we're going to experience going forward, is that we will see, without doubt, certain commodity areas continue to be challenged, and over time those may change, which commodities are impacted. But I think for us, it's all about staying on top of that, making sure that we keep close to our suppliers. We've got good relationships that we build with those suppliers to make sure that we are keeping very close to their capacity, availability. So we have a team that's just focused on supplier relationship management, really working with our suppliers on, understanding their factory capacities, working on them with our relationships to make sure that we are positioned such that when we get into these challenging market conditions, we are able to work collaboratively with them. We've given them as much visibility as we can to our requirements, and give them a chance to be able to support us, better than just dropping demands on them without, having provided any of the kind of background and explanation.
So you still have to be aware of the golden screw.
Absolutely, yes, yeah. It's the age-old problem of the golden screw. So yeah, I mean, we absolutely have to. It doesn't matter, what the part is, right? It's going to stop you building. So you've got to make sure that, and that's why this long tail piece is so important, because historically a lot of the focus when you look at deploying digital solutions with suppliers is you kind of use the Pareto rule, and you kind of focus on either your top spend or your top volume suppliers. And yeah, you can automate transactions and provide forecast visibility, etc. But if you're not doing that down through the long tail of your spend, then it's highly likely that it's going to be one of those suppliers that potentially impacts you in the future. So for us, this was, we already had solutions focused on the higher volume, but really we need to make sure that we're building resiliency across the whole supply chain, and that we are we're on top of what's going on across all of those long tail spend suppliers, and that we're understanding where gaps may exist there, moving forward.
So maybe you can explain a bit more about the use of supply chain technology and the transformation.
Yeah, I mean, if we think about this, what from our perspective, what are we trying to achieve through digital collaboration, right? For us, it's really around, how do we leverage technology to help us accelerate improvements in our processes across supply chain. Kind of everything, we look at this really from five perspectives, which is around how can we increase visibility? So how do we leverage technology to help us understand better what's happening across the supply chain, from whether that be from with our suppliers, or indeed, trying to work with those suppliers in terms of understanding the sub-tier impacts that they may have as well. But how do we enable that visibility? How do we make sure we can understand, where material is at any point in time, especially, as it's in transit? How do we know where material is? When is it coming? Where we're moving it through our factory? Providing visibility into, our shop floor workflows and our orders that are flowing through the factories and then on the outbound supply chain side. So it's about, really focused on how we use and how we connect technology to enhance that visibility. The second element that we focus on is how do we use it to enhance collaboration. So that's both collaboration internally amongst our teams. So making sure that, for example, our planning team and our purchasing team, that we have visibility to the information. They know at their fingertips what are the critical parts, being able to really, make faster decisions because we're connected more tightly between our functional groups using technology. But then it's also, as we've talked about on the supplier side, it's around how do we use technology to help us make collaboration with our partner ecosystem easier and more seamless. And also, how do we then provide, better visibility to our customers in terms of what's going on within their supply chain? How can we give them more accurate and timely information? So it's really about building those connections to be able to share information more seamlessly and collaborate better together. From a resiliency perspective, again, it's around being able to understand what's potentially going to happen before it happens. So how do we plan when plan around potential disruptions? How do we mitigate events in order that we can avoid an impact to our manufacturing operations? So really being able, again, it comes back to having that digital view of your supply chain, being able then to look and being able to quickly model different scenarios that can help you navigate a potential disruption quickly as it occurs.
Alan, what kind of disruptions are you looking at? There are a lot of known disruptions and also unknown disruptions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it can be anything from you're right. It can be the known knowns and the known unknowns. It's kind of it's really around. I mean, on the one hand, it can be anything from specific event risks, so weather related. It can be, obviously, we've seen a lot in recent years of specific, climate-related impacts that can have implications on logistics networks. So possibly being, looking at how do we reroute, navigate around, freight lane impacts that we may have because of specific issues, so that may be one area. It can also be within suppliers themselves. So factory events, fires within factories, machine issues, output issues. So being able to sort of understand the options that we have there, being able to assess, what are our options in terms of where else can we source the materials from? Do we have them elsewhere across the company? How do we move them? How do we expedite other orders? So, it can be everything from, I would say sort of event-based to kind of one-off, issues that really you couldn't predict.
All right. Decision making. I was wondering. You talk about advanced analytics in here. What do you mean with the use of advanced analytics?
Yeah. So I think here it's really around. For us, again, it's we have a vast amount of data within our systems, and we've got different business models that we're trying to support. making sure that, we make sure that we service those customers, we're delivering on time. But on the other hand, we also have to make sure that we're optimizing our supply chain performance. So really for us, when we talk about analytics, it's about how do we use the data to run different models, make sure that we're kind of tuning and optimizing the way that our supply chain is running to the best effect. So an example might be in here, for example, inventory scenarios. Mm-hmm. So, how, really looking at analytics to both on the in terms of the planning side. So what are we loading? So looking at, statistical and machine learning forecasting models in terms of what we load and how we plan to drive material. But then also, using analytics to look at how do we position inventory within the supply chain. So where are the optimal points for buffering? Where are the optimal points in terms of safety stock levels that we hold either in our factories or our suppliers? So being able to use data to be able to, model and optimize that, to balance out, making sure that we can achieve the desired service levels, but at the same time, making sure that we are, effectively managing the working capital elements of the supply chain as well.
All right. And the final bullet point about efficiency, can you elaborate?
Yeah, a little bit like I talked about previously on the, with why we engage with E2Open, right? But we have a very, we have a specific challenge there where, we have buyers who have been spending a lot of the time having to, manually format and manually enter information into systems. That really is something that we can drive through a technology-based solution. So with the case with E2Open, we were able to really through deployment of particularly the long tail automation, we're able to remove the need for buyers to spend so much time focused on downloading, formatting, emailing, purchase order information, and instead they can focus really on making sure that they stay on top of the gaps, making sure that they're doing more value add activities that are going to ensure that minimize the risk of disruption to the material flow, rather than spending so much time on admin that potentially you miss the important escalations or the important calls that you've got to make to close gaps. So that's really where we see technology playing an important role there, and that's just one example. But really we as we look across all of our processes, we're really looking at where can we use technology, where can we bring in more process automation to enhance the way that we operate.
Yeah, and I think, Martijn, could I jump in on that?
Yep.
I think Alan's given a lot of great examples of what, resilience is. And I just want to give another opinion of it. Really, it's that ability to react or respond efficiently. And this last one is what he's really calling out. You can see the problem, you can understand it with analytics, but how you act and how you act efficiently is what makes you agile, and it's what makes you resilient. By being able to do those things and recognize what needs to happen and put it in place and in motion and actually execute it, I think that's another great way to look at it. And this chart here, from the visibility aspect to the decision making and efficiency, I think is a great encapsulation of that.
Yeah. A question to you, Alan. Looking at this whole program, and it's massive, but what do you say are the overall benefits, of all this? How do you explain it to the board what this has resulted all in?
Yeah, it's I think it's the key benefits for us undoubtedly have been the ability to accurately have a more accurate view of what's occurring across our supply chain, a timely status update of orders. If you just think about the number of orders we're managing, mm-hmm. If there's delays in buyers getting to updating POs, and we're trying to make decisions on pulling in products, trying to optimize revenue, and for our end customers, if they've got priorities that they're looking for us to ship, and we have to go and try and look at modeling specific scenarios for them. If we don't have confidence in the commitments that we have from our suppliers in the system, then you effectively the exercise becomes somewhat wasted, and that you can't be sure that truly the dates that you're modeling this on are accurate. So for us, being driving that improved accuracy of data within our system against our open orders, making sure that we are communicating timely, has been really, really important in enabling us to support and assist our customers and being able to give them better, more accurate commitments, and making sure that we're also even just on the standard run of business, we're able to have a better way of understanding when exceptions occur, seeing those faster, and through this piece we talked about on efficiency, having the buyers have more time to go work the issue, close the gap before it impacts production, rather than potentially missing it because they're spending their time on administrative tasks. So I think that the big benefits certainly have came in just really the kind of predictability, our ability to make sure that we are being more confident in our commitments that we're making, because we've got better quality real-time data in our systems.
Makes sense. Before we go to the program management, I have a question from the audience. It's great stuff. It's from Otto, and he's asking, how big is the team doing this? Or do you have a segmentation on risk for all this? Maybe you can highlight a bit about your team, and then we go to the program management.
Yeah. So and I'll talk a little bit about the team. I'll probably come back to it as well on the last slide. But what will probably surprise everyone on here is this team doing this started with 2 people, and we're now at 4. So okay. I'll explain in one of the later slides how we can do that with fundamentally 4 people in my team and a company the size we are, right? But and when I say the team on this is 4, that's my direct reports, right? And I think what I need to be really clear on that. So there's 4 folks now on this from a supply chain perspective. But the way that we work inside the Jabil is matrixed in terms of we pull in resources to projects from other functions. So obviously we have this whole initiative has been driven in collaboration with our IT organization, with our operations organization as well. I mean, they're fundamental partners, and obviously they have resources assigned on here as well. So I think the core team in total, with the kind of, if you pull all those resources for the different functional areas, is somewhere in the region of about 15 people from across the different functions. And different skill sets within those functions supporting this, but that's really focused specifically on the that's on the design of the program, the development of the solution, the testing, the training preparation, and then the kind of deployment planning. And on the later slide, I'll talk a bit about how we manage the deployment side of this across our factories. But just from a kind of design and development perspective, it's sort of 4 direct staff on my organization and supply chain, and around 15 including the other functions.
So maybe you can explain a bit, what is the foundation for your success in this matter?
Yeah. I think for me on this, the number one most critical thing for us on this whole initiative was program management. It has absolutely been our foundation for success. One of the first things that we did is we created a charter for this whole initiative around what is it we're trying to achieve, what is it we're we're looking to do here in terms of building that resiliency with our supplier collaboration. So we were very clear on the objectives that we wanted. We were very clear around what was in scope, what was out of scope. So for example, this what we're talking about here is focused specifically on what we would call bill of material components. So it doesn't include indirect spend material that's treated separately. So this was really around how we collaborate with our direct material. So again, building that charter, be really clear on what's in scope, out of scope, be clear who your stakeholders are, build your structure on around meeting cadence, make sure that everybody's role that's going to be part of this project is understood, and we spent a lot of time defining responsibilities, accountabilities, and making sure that we were really clear how that was laid out, especially, as I said, because we're working across IT and operations. So we had to be really, really crystal clear on who owned which parts of this project. So, really having program management as a foundational core was critical in terms of how we collaborated as a team, which is kind of the first item on here. And everything is, having that structure, everyone knowing what they need to be doing, just made everything way more efficient in terms of how we move forward. The other thing around program management for us was on, how did we resolve issues as they occurred? Of course, we're going to run into challenges and problems during this project, but having an established way of resolving problems, making sure that we've got the right reports, project plans in place, we can see when issues occur, and if we see them, we can solve them. So really just making sure that everyone was kind of keeping the plans up to date. We were sharing information and really dealing with problems head on as they occurred and not letting them linger. I think the other element here was just around just having really it just drove a level of efficiency, because we just had a way of working. Every meeting was run the same way. We used smart sheets to drive the project plan, so that became the core focus of the meetings. We worked through it, so things were efficient. We didn't waste time revisiting topics from previous weeks that had already been addressed. Everything was documented, recorded, and it really helped move us along and just helped drive the overall performance. And at the end of the day, it's just making sure that a big part of this for us was around how we communicate and how we build a followership for this whole initiative, not only within Jabil, but also with the suppliers. So we spent a lot of time on our communication plans. We worked really closely with our marketing communications team in terms of building the different forms of collateral for keeping awareness and the momentum behind this project in place. So kind of sending newsletters, we did videos, we did a very specific video, an animated video on the solution that really helped people digest how this was going to work, why it was a benefit for them, why they should get involved. So we used that very effectively internally. We built we spent a lot of time on our training material strategy for our suppliers. We built all the training material multi-language as well. So, we wanted to make it as easy as we could for suppliers globally to be able to understand the asks in there. So we prepared the training in multiple languages. We've put in place a very clear process around how we would manage or train and manage the supplier onboarding. So really getting all of this, in a formalized plan as we went through at the outset, and then as we went through evolving it. It was really about, it was really critical that that we followed that when you're trying to manage something as complicated as this project has been.
Makes sense. And maybe to wrap it up from your side, can you explain a bit more about the whole change management approach?
Yeah. One of the things that has been a huge success on this project has been our collaboration with our operations teams globally. Obviously, from a supply chain perspective, my team has been leading the way in terms of the technology selection and the building out the process steps. And what we've done is work really collaboratively with our operations teams to make those process changes part of our common business process architecture, which is the pictorial you see on the left, which is really around how we make sure that we document and standardize across our factories the way that we operate. So getting this new process supported by the E2Open technology, getting that into the common architecture, making that the new standard across our factories so that everyone has a common understanding of how this process is going to work was really important. The second part of this then has been on how we leveraged our what we call our subject matter expert, our SME network, across the regions and factories. So we have, again, depending on the size of our factories, we either have factory-based SMEs or potentially regional SMEs who were instrumental in taking those, this new process, this new way of working, and disseminating that down into the sites, into the purchasing teams. And as we did that, we learned a lot. We got feedback from the teams, and what this network is, by nature of it being connected and the fact that we share information, we were really able to share both best practice and also share any learnings that we had, any opportunities for improvement across the factory network, so that it really helped accelerate the progress and enable us to move with speed. And then we have this principle, what we call the one to few, few to many model. So if you think about this as kind of my team is the four people I mentioned previously are somewhat the one. Here they're kind of globally owning this program. GPO is global process owner, so they kind of globally own this way of working with the collaboration tools and process. And then they're effectively disseminating that down to the regional SMEs. So my team spent time working with the SMEs to educate them on the way of working, the new process. And then those SMEs take that down to all at the site level and down to the buyers as well at that level. So it's really a cascade of information. And it means that we can learn quickly, we can get, feedback amongst the peer groups, but we also have a very quick way of getting information back to the global process owner as well when we have to make and, potentially changes to the product itself.
Okay. Thanks, Alan, for your explanation. So Jeff, talking about ecosystems, in complex world, and mentioning based on our IT segment positioning of our E2Open, can you explain a bit more, about the whole interconnected ecosystems and the importance of all this?
Sure. Yeah, and first and foremost, just want to call out a big thank you to Alan and Jabil and their organization, because even with the tools that I'm explaining, it can't happen without the execution that they've put in place here. So, at E2Open, we're here to support those goals of our clients and the initiatives of our clients. And we do that by understanding the end-to-end supply chain. And we see it as four connected ecosystems: the channel with demand, logistics, global trade, and supply. And, we know these organizations typically operate at least in functional groups and even sometimes within silos. And that's why it's our goal to connect all 4 of these ecosystems onto a single platform, that's going to drive efficiency and, enable collaboration. So we have almost 500,000 enterprises on our network, and we've got 15 billion transactions annually.
So that's big. But my question would be, where to start? In the end, we all want to connect it with every supplier and customer around the world through logistics and the supplier base, whatever. But where to start if you have, the choice if you want to connect, considering you have 4 ecosystems based on it.
That's a good point. But I think the digitization of the data is the place to start because, that's the first aspect of being able to see what's happening. I think choosing a partner like E2Open that can have solutions for all ends of the supply chain through all 4 ecosystems is what's going to allow you to, once you do have the data, be able to see it holistically across the supply chain and share it. So there are a lot of ways to go about it, but strategically, I think, the way Jabil has gone about extending the onboarding and ensuring that they've got digitization of everybody and everything is flowing into the same view. That's really one of the very first aspects because you build on that within understanding and reacting efficiently.
And maybe to connect on that, onboarding of new suppliers or customers is essential. Maybe you can elaborate a bit on that.
Yeah, that's kind of what our partner network differentiates us. Beyond the tool sets and applications that we provide, our connected partner network is what makes us stand out against our other vendors. Mm-hmm. Our network is our backbone, and it's the largest supply chain business network in connecting 480,000 enterprises across all 4 ecosystems. And the way that we do that is with reusable connections and fast and reliable ERP integrations, essentially making onboarding suppliers and partners both efficient and profitable. And so finally, we harmonize all that data flowing through our network and build a single source of truth for our clients and their partners to collaborate on and grow their strategic relationships.
So that is very important because data cleansing and make sure you have the right data is essential nowadays, and more
it's
so
the basis
in
of decisions, right?
Yeah. And now going forward, with the need for ESG compliancy and Scope 3 measurements, I can imagine that these kind of platform are essential to go forward in the near future for that reason.
It's essential to understand who your supplier network is. Once you have these things connected, you can start to see different tiers of them and understand where your relationships are, where your opportunities are, and where your risks are and throughout the supply chain. And you can make changes based on that affect your whole supply chain, but ultimately position your company in a better position.
Yeah, right. And talking about ecosystem, last year McKinsey was starting to write about business ecosystem in June, and later on, Gartner followed on writing about supply chain ecosystem. And I tried to Google on pictures, but I didn't find anything useful. So that's why I created my own visualization of an ecosystem last fall, and I created a visualization of household products. Look at this. It's not like the linear supply chain anymore. You have different kind of parties involved with co-packers, logistics service providers, e-fulfillment providers, you name it. And Jabil is also in there somewhere. And you have different customer segments, and you have in the gray area third parties like NGOs, government, banks, and you name them. In the brown area, you have logistics parties, but also recycling companies. So this whole supply chains become circular, and in the end, you have in the green area also, wood pulp suppliers, green energy suppliers, and in the next decade we will see that there's a high need for green suppliers for everything. So there will be a scarcity in that area. So yeah, in my point of view, you have to visualize all your stakeholders. So I was wondering, Alan, how do you relate to this kind of visualization of an ecosystem?
Obviously you did this specific for retail, but I think it's very, you can take that and map it for any case. It certainly would be applicable in our situation as well. And for sure, I think the days of having linear supply chains are well behind us. Really, it is about, it's all about a connected ecosystem and really how you build those connections with all of the key partners within that ecosystem and be able to share and move data effectively between them to optimize the performance of the overall supply chain. So I think it's this is a very kind of nice visual way of looking at this. I like this chart, and I definitely think it's applicable beyond just household products for sure.
Yeah, and you see different kind of flows of goods, of data, and finance. So that's applicable. And you see that ecosystems are also competing to each other, and like you are mentioning, Jabil is playing a role in different kind of ecosystem with all kind of different industries.
Yeah, and certainly for us, we're seeing, you touched there on the whole the piece around recycling and etc. and sustainability. That's becoming an ever increasing part and something that we're really focused on as well in terms of we brought ecosystem partners into into Jabil from in order to address that as well. So that's definitely a big element that's gaining momentum as we go forward.
All right, thanks a lot. So we are already on the hour. Times are going fast, especially when you have this kind of interesting conversation from this great case. So I would suggest right after this, Alan, Jeff, and myself will be available in the virtual lounge for the after talk for the next 30 minutes. So if you have more questions, please join us. We are accessible, so join us and sit down at table 1, and then we have a further conversation if you have further questions to either Alan, Jeff, or myself. So for further information, so on the left hand side you can download this ecosystem. There is also a nice blog about supply chain network design by E2Open, and on the right hand side you see also a great solution guide about sub-tier supply collaboration also be available. So there's more to read and to go through. So beware of that, and this will be made available through the PDF and a link. So I would like to thank Alan, especially. Thank you for joining this webinar Wednesday.
Thank you.
And Jeff, thank you for initiating this whole venture on this Wednesday, talking about Jabil.
You're welcome. Thank you to both of you and the audience.
Yeah. So, and the audience, thank you for joining in live or listening the recording, and hopefully see you another Wednesday talking about another great topic in supply chain matters. And maybe I will see you right after this in the virtual lounge. Go there. We will be sitting at table 1, and I would like to wrap up and thank you for now, and see you later.
Thank you.
Thanks.